Dr. Mario Martinez, welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
I have got to tell you, your first appearance, number 80, which I referred to in the introduction, is absolutely one of my all-time favorites, as well as so many of our subscribers. It's timeless, it's ageless, how appropriate, right? Kind of ironic, given the subject matter, and just so important and relevant. It's one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about, and it truly is really the epitome of being empowered, because you are a pioneer in really shifting this paradigm. I love how you're interested in talking about the causes of health. You study healthy people. You study what they're doing right. You try to explain to people to focus on what the outliers are doing right, rather than all the people that aren't. Everything, your whole philosophy of how you practice and live is like right up my alley. And I'm thrilled to share with my audience all your latest discoveries since you were first on the show.
Well, thank you. Yes, lots been happening. As you know, we've been looking at the causes of health for quite a while. So what's been happening is that in the longevity science, you can have hair samples, you can have DNA methylation, you can have glycanage and all kinds of measures. Some are better than others, and I'll talk about the one that I think is the best to find out your biological age. But what happens is that although all those micro level assessments are done, highly sophisticated, you end up giving recommendations, or people give recommendations, what I call the usual suspects of wellness. After all that blood work and all that testing, they'll say, well, you can exercise, you can meditate, you can relax, you can take supplements. Well, it's the same old thing that we've known for 40 years. And that's good, but it's not specific enough to really let people know what is it that you need to do. And some of the studies that have been done, meta-analysis studies, that looked at what is best, a vegetarian diet, vegan diet, exercise, no exercise. What they find is that there's no specific magic bullet for anybody. The people are very individual. And that for vegans is good for some people, not for others. Meat is good for people, not for others. Some kind of exercise. So what I try to do then is, okay, now what is the uniqueness of the experts in longevity? I probably know more about centenarians than anybody else in the world, but I don't consider myself an expert. They are the experts. Centenarians, people who are over 100, they are the experts because they're the ones who are living what we as scientists are trying to study. They're living it. So what I did is for the past 20 years, as you know, is study centenarians, people all over the world in collective cultures like Asia and individual cultures like United States and Australia, to find out what is unique about them. And I found that it's not that they eat one particular meal or food. Most of them don't exercise. Some don't even know what meditation is. They eat whatever they want. And the key is that although they don't meditate, they're very introspective and have some kind of spiritual connection, or at least some connection with nature, something greater than themselves. Although they don't exercise, they stay very active. And although they eat whatever they want, they eat healthy food and in moderation. So they're doing naturally what we do structured. I work out and I take supplements and I do all these things structured, but they do it naturally in the way of life. So after studying these people for so many years, I first came in as an anthropologist and then as a psycho-immunologist. As an anthropologist, I just wanted to come in and look at what is it that they do and what are the things that keep coming out when I look at people in China, I look at people in the blue zones, I look at people in different places. And I found 8 factors that are really important, that are very, very repetitive, and no matter where they come from. So I thought, okay, these 8 factors are 4 ways of they perceive the world and 4 emotions that they express. So then the anthropologist became the psycho-immunologist, my area of expertise, which is how thoughts and emotions affect the nervous, immune, and endocrine system. So I found that great news that all those 8 factors are either anti-stress or anti-inflammatory. And inflammation is what kills you, not stress. Inflammation is what makes you age. So inflammation. So these people are living with the way they perceive the world, the way they emote the world, in an anti-inflammatory, anti-stress environment that allows them to live long. Genetics is only 20%, maybe 15%. The rest is how they live and the things that I'll be talking about. So we came up with a questionnaire. It's called the CCI, Centenarian Consciousness Index, that actually will tell you how close you are to Centenarian Index. And then we've gone a step ahead, which is we're working with the best lab in the world that actually measures your biological age based on the inflammation in the immune system. So some people could have great blood work. They could have great, just wonderful triglycerides and good cortisol levels. But if they don't look at what the immune system is doing in the inflammation, that's not going to help as much. And this is why you see people who are in great shape, they work out and they drop out with a heart attack, or they have a stroke, or they have illnesses. And we think that that's because you have to go deeper in and you have to look at your biological age based on what's called glycanage. And I'll explain that further, but that's the idea. So what we'll do is we'll have people take the CCI, you take it online, and it'll give you immediate results of where you're high, where you're low, what you need to do. And then the people that want more, they can have the glycanage, which is a kit. You just take a few drops of blood, you put them on a card and send it back. Within a few weeks, you get your biological age. The good news about all of this is reversible. We're working with people, we've reversed 3, 4, 10 years biologically to show that if you do certain things, your biological age can change. The best we have so far is a man who's 69 and he came out 44 years younger. So he's 25, his biological age. And he has had some things in his life. So it doesn't mean like he's living a perfect life, but he's been doing these things for about a year. Another person, within 4 months, we reversed the biological age 3 years. But what we're doing is a major study that's never been done with glycanage. The people that do where we have a pilot study, we're testing 50 centenarians all over the world, 50 who are healthy. We give them the CCI, the questionnaire, and we give them the blood work. So far, out of, let's say about 50, we have about 20 that we tested already all over the world. We find significantly and consistently that they're high on the CCI factors, and every one of them is at least 20 years younger than their chronological age. That's why they're centenaries. So that's just the beginning. And we can go from there with any questions or anything. But it's really very exciting because all these things are reversible, and it doesn't have to be with medications or supplements or exercise. It's an addition to what you're already doing. It's not replacing, but it's enhancers.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The idea that this is all reversible or changeable. And what did you just say? Genetics has been proven to be at most 20%, which is always the cop-out, right? Which we all hear. Either it's, oh, you're just getting older, that's the way it is, or genetics, or, nothing's wrong with you, it's in your head. That goes like the 3 cop-outs. But so when you have these people and you're able to reverse their biological markers, what is your team doing to do that, Mario? Like what, obviously it's lifestyle stuff. Like, does your team give them recommendations? Like, why don't you tweak this, that, the other, and then they retest and they make the changes, or how's that?
Yes.
Work?
Initially, when you take the test, the CCI, and when you take the glycanage, it'll give you some ideas. So for the glycanage, what it does is that it's very scientific, but I'll make it simple. Einstein said, if you can't explain something simple, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to make it very simple. Glycan is a carbohydrate, a complex sugar that is in almost all cells. And it has to do with what's called folding of proteins, how proteins are expressed and all that. But what these people found, and they've published in more than 200 articles in the best journals in the world, is that glycan, specifically in one of the antibodies, the IgG, which is the most abundant, the glycan in those antibodies, immune cells, will predict and will show a marker of the level of inflammation that you have in the immune system. And that's really important because that's, I believe, and they believe, is the most powerful way of measuring. You can do hair samples, you can do DNA methylation, but this is the best because this picks up not only on the epigenetics, how genetics is affected by environment, but these are actual effectors. These are actually markers that actually make changes in the inflammation. The other thing is that there's something called, I'm sure you've heard, inflammaging. They say it's normal. It's not normal. It's just for now, we don't know how to change it. But inflammaging means that as you grow older, you have a little bit more inflammation, more genetic or more systemic inflammation. So a major study that was done very recently, this is just information that your public is getting for the first time, is that when you look at the inflammaging, you'll say, for example, a person who's 30 would be here, a person who's 60 would be here, and centenarian would be here. They're the highest. So it's a process going. But why is it that the centenarians don't get sick? That in general, they don't develop the deteriorating so-called illnesses of aging. They don't get the cardiovascular problems or the, in general, or the diabetes type 2. And what the study found is that they have a compensatory way of dealing with it than inflammaging. And although the study didn't conclude this, we did because they didn't have the information that we have. So what they found is that T cells are complex immune cells. They have to do with coordinating attacks and suppressing attacks and so forth. So they looked at a ratio of T cells. There's a type of T cell called T helper and T regulator. So they look at the ratio of that. Then some are inflammatory and others are anti-inflammatory. So they have a kind of a balancing. So again, that scale, let's say for the T ratio, a 30-year-old is here, a 60-year-old is here, and a centenarian is here, lower than the young people. So they have a compensatory complexity that allows them to, although they have inflammation, it doesn't affect it into getting to illness. And that's the kind of thing that we're beginning to measure now. So to your question, when you take the CCI, the written, it'll give you specifically information on where you came out high, what to do, where you came out low, what to do. Then if you take the Glycanage, it'll tell you, well, these clusters here are more related to hormones. These clusters are more related to genetics. These are more related to lifestyle. But they didn't have anything beyond that until we started doing the CCI. So now a person they could have a package where they could say, okay, I take the CCI and the Glycanage, and that's it, and you work on your own. Or we have some modules where we say, you take the both tests and we will work with you for 3, 4, 10 sessions, whatever you want, and pinpoint it and tailor make it to your needs, and then measure after 6 or 7 months later, because things don't happen that quickly. So that's what's happening. And it's exciting because we found, for example, you've heard of the blue zones and different areas in the world. We found a place that's better than all the blue zones. And it's Bordighera. It's in the Italian Riviera, a town of 10,000 people. We've already found 12 centenarians, which is tremendous ratio per capita.
Yeah.
Better than Okinawa and anything else. By the way, Spain is beating Okinawa now. It's getting better than Okinawa because Okinawa are eating American processed food more, so they don't have as many centenarians.
How sad.
All these things are going on. This is very, very new information, but very exciting because now we can pinpoint and go beyond the usual suspects of wellness.
Well, one of the many, many things I love about your work is you're not a fan of behavior modification, which is kind of like a big, method of trying to, change people's behavior, right? Because you always, you're big on the terrain and all that stuff. So do you want to talk about that at all, of how, like, their lifestyle choices and all that, how that's not considered behavior modification? So people understand how to apply this, it's not about changing your behavior. It's about setting up your environment to win.
Yes, behavior modification can be good for anxiety and things like that, but behavior modification is a bit simplistic.
Okay.
It comes from rat psychology, unfortunately, but I used to teach it. I don't teach it anymore. But what we look at is a terrain that supports the behavior.
Okay, yep.
And when you try to modify behavior, let's say you want to stop smoking, you do smoking cessation training, you do imagery, you do that, and the person stops smoking, okay, you succeeded. No, because the smoking has a terrain of some kind of a self-sabotaging or some kind of process that doesn't allow you to clean it up. So then you stop smoking, you start eating. You stop eating your pornography. So it doesn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other important component is that not only the terrain, but what we're looking at is the meaning maker, which is those 8 factors. The meaning maker of the person who takes the supplement, the meaning maker of the person who's doing behavior modification, the meaning maker of food. So we add a component that nobody's looking at because nobody brings psychoneuroimmunology in to the longevity science like we do. So
it's so hard to believe.
Yeah, wow. They don't. And the question is that you're taking a supplement, okay, and you're working out. But what if your meaning maker is one that is low on all of the 8 factors? Yeah. And the factors, so it can make more sense, the 4 perception factors, and they're more related to anti-stress, and there are 4 emotional factors that are more related to anti-inflammation. The 4 perception factors is that how you perceive time, how you perceive aging, how you perceive health, and how you perceive self-valuation. Those are anti-stress. The 4 emotions, which are, all of these are high with the centenarians. The 4 emotions are gratitude, generosity, admiration, and curiosity. All of those directly or indirectly are highly anti-inflammatory. So what these people are doing, their meaning maker, their default mode, their meaning maker is one that supports anti-stress and anti-inflammation. So one example, I'll go deep with one and the others won't have time, but let's go with gratitude. Okay, gratitude. What is gratitude? Gratitude is the ability to gracefully accept the gift. What happens when you're grateful? Oxytocin goes up, dopamine goes up, and others, but mainly oxytocin. Oxytocin is a powerful neuropeptide that can even repair some heart tissue when there's heart damage. Powerful. It happens in orgasms, when you're breastfeeding, when you touch somebody. It doesn't have to be sexually. Just touch them and you smile. Yeah. In 6 seconds, you have an oxytocin. So that's what brings it up. What brings it down is what culture teaches you. Culture teaches you to deny the good things about you, to deny your ability. So if I say, "Oh, Amy, I love your hair," you're taught to say something, "Oh, because you haven't seen it in the morning."
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
No oxytocin. Or if you say, "Oh, well, it's my genetics," no oxytocin. If you say "thank you," you seal it with the language cycle. And if I say "thank you," you get oxytocin.
Okay.
So generosity and gratitude are oxytocin enhancers. The quid pro quo or the marginalizing of the gift, no value. In fact, if someone says, "You're so bright," and you get embarrassed, you're going to have inflammatory molecules, tumor necrosis factor and things like that. And what centenarians do is they're very comfortable accepting their gift. And quid pro quo would be that in relationships or whatever, quid pro quo, you say, "Okay, now today you do this, then tomorrow you do that." To show how powerful that is, there's some cultures in South Pacific that actually do that. They'll give you a cow for your birthday, but they do it in a way of being egotistical and saying, "Let me show you how much I have." You can't turn the quid pro quo a cow. High incidence of depression and suicide in that culture because of that. So it's powerful. So what centenarians do, they don't have quid pro quo, and they can accept it very well. A 102-year-old woman, I always talk about her. I said, "You know, you're really attractive." She said, "Oh, yes, I've always been attractive. Since I was a little girl, I was attractive." How refreshing. Now, if you say that, "Oh, you're being conceited." No, if you give me a gift, I'm going to say thank you. And I appreciate it. When somebody says, "You're so brilliant, thank you for noticing." "Oh, but you're being so egotistical." It's either a gift or it's a false humility. And that's what we're taught. All the culture teaches you is anti-healthy living because of the collectivism.
So sad.
You admire someone, you say, "Oh, I love Amy. You're so bright. You did this. I admire you." Dopamine, also a powerful anti-stress and anti-inflammatory because it suppresses immune responses to inflammation when there's no inflammation to be had, to needed. But if you feel envy instead of admiration, that kills it, and you begin to create stress hormones.
Wow.
So admiration, gracefully noticing it, you have oxytocin. If you have envy or if you have resentfulness about it, no oxytocin and no dopamine. And and possible inflammation and stress. So why? Because we're not programmed. We're not computers. We're designed. If we see any behavior that's laudable, that's something that you want to imitate, it gives you a good feeling, like endorphins and oxytocin, so you can imitate it. But if you toxify by saying, oh, well, no, she's got a lot of money, anybody can do that, nothing. So the language and the emotion is what seals whether it's going to be anti-inflammatory or not. So
important and so insidious and subtle. Like, we're just not even aware this is even really happening. And, you know, to the broader point, this is just part of our culture, the unspoken. You know, it's like, be humble, you know, like you said, false humility and all that. I mean, like, don't be arrogant and don't be full of yourself and you don't want to get a big head and all that stuff. But what I'm hearing you say is that this is part of our biological design for healing health. This is medicine. This is extremely powerful psychological vitamins that nature has created our social system to give each other and promote to help the species. But we're kind of derailing it, you know?
Actually, I'm doing a series of workshops that I call the psycholinguistics of the I self. The I self. I didn't create that word, but I use it differently. I self is a person that puts out their identity, their self-esteem, everything else on the digital world. If I was able to see what was going on in Facebook, I'm doing okay. If I'm told somebody texts me and tells me that I'm wonderful, and even what they call now the mobile phobia, fear of being away from your phone. So what's happening is
that's a thing? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where I work out, I go to the steam room and I go to the sauna, and there are people with their iPhones there in the steam. That's a place for you to introspect, to go inward, or they're either with their phones. If you ask them, how do you feel right now? There's no introspection.
They're not feeling.
What's happening is that these people are living in what I call the lonely crowd.
Well, yes.
Like the whole book of the lonely crowd. They're in the lonely crowd, and they validate themselves with the digital world. The digital world should be working for you, not you being a slave of the digital world. You have somebody that you want to talk to, and instead of calling, hey, how's it going? You text and text and text.
Right.
It's what I call the digital telegraph. Why the hell do you want to do that? Why don't you say, hey, what's going on? Well, let me text you. All of those things detach you from the human component that has the oxytocin. If I say hello to somebody in vivo and I smile, oxytocin. If I do it online, less oxytocin or no oxytocin. The immune system can tell the difference, and that is real or it's on a digital. So that's what happens. And the cultures will teach you to be collectivist. For example, I'll go to collectivist societies and like in Philippines, and I'll ask executives. These are successful executive people from big companies. I'll say, okay, how many people here are honest? Okay, that's collectivist. Everybody. How many people here are good sons? How many people love their family? All collectivists. How many people here are brilliant? They'll look around for permission to raise their hand, because that's not collectivist. To be brilliant is individuating. To be attractive is individuating. It has nothing to do with the culture. So the culture will teach you that only things that are collectivist can allow you to express it and allow you to accept it. So the gift has to be either for the collectivism, or if not, you have to be pseudo humble and say, oh, no, it's nothing. Sometimes I'll go to some people. At first, they think, "Oh, this guy's so egotistical." I'll say, in something about that, something that I know. I'll say, "Well, in my not so humble opinion, this is how I look at it." And they laugh, but true. It's an opinion that I don't feel it's humble in the way. Oh, nobody knows it. I know this. I'm brilliant, and so are you. But the key is that it's inclusive. If I see brilliance in you, because I have the capacity to see brilliance, so that means that I'm brilliant.
It's reflective.
It's reflective. That's right. So it's got to be inclusive. So when I say you're this, you're that, but also it works the other way. If I say you're stupid, I am living stupidity consciousness, which is going to hurt me as much as it's going to hurt you.
Well, okay, I got a million questions. I definitely want to get into the 8 factors in particular. But before we move on from this point, can we bring it down to ground level for particularly like parents of teenagers, whatever? I mean, Mario, as you know, this is part of our culture, the texting. I mean, nowadays, if you call someone, I mean, someone's afraid someone died. Like, oh, did someone get in an accident? Like, people don't call anymore, right? The phone rings, it's usually bad or an emergency. So, people texting each other at the same dinner table. I have, okay, I'm not going to mention names, but I've got people in my own family that are in the 20s and 30s, and they are lacking in social skills. They have a hard time just small talk conversation. Like they just, these generations are growing up, like you said, I forget what the terms you use, but that digital barrier. And yeah. So just before we move off this point, can we bring it down to the ground for people listening? Like, how do we go against the culture? How do parents, swim against the stream to get their kids to have social skills and then not, engage in that?
Well, because there's a big confusion. And I'll give you an example to bring it down to earth because it's really important. We have, as Homo sapiens, modern Homo sapiens, we've been around maybe 150,000 years, maybe 200,000 years. And that has been a trial and error to see what works, what archetypes work. Like a hammer is best for a nail, screwdriver for screws. You can't mix them. So the developmental, the ontogenetics of it has been that if you are a woman and you have a child, you're not a buddy or a friend, you're a mother.
Right.
Mother archetype. And the mother archetype is because the child needs a mother, not a buddy, a good friend. And you say, hey, buddy, come here. Hey, buddy. It's not buddy, mom. That's the first thing. The second thing is that those archetypes are abused. You are being a mother now, and then tomorrow you have to be the friend. But then the mother has to tell the child what to do. But I thought you were my friend. I am your mother and I'm a friendly mother, but I'm not your buddy. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to be aware that people need to be given options, but also you need to give them options with limits. And you have to give them permission to not like you, permission to be upset with you. For example, people, you see them going to restaurants and you see the father and the mother with their phones and the little kids playing with their videos. There's no interaction. One of the causes of health is breaking bread. So you take that away. So getting back to your question, the point is that before you can make any change, you have to give the other person permission to not like it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to set limits. I'll give you an example. You can cut this out if you want to because it's going to be politically incorrect.
I'm good with that.
This woman was interviewed and they asked her, so tell me about your son. Well, my son is a cat. Oh, he's a cat. And what does he do in school? Well, he purrs. Oh, and how does he get along? He purrs. Number one, that's profound stupidity.
He's a furry. He's a furry.
Child abuse, because you're not giving any skills. That, in my practice, would be delusional thinking. Delusional thinking for the parent and a bad parent because it's allowing that person to live in a fantasy that's not real. Imagine going to a job and what skills do you have when you start purring? It's not getting the person ready to be able to deal with the world in any way. Plus,
these are whole school systems buying into this stuff. Everyone is supporting this environment.
And that's going to change, hopefully. But what's happening is that they are creating what used to be delusions as in-your-face types of ways of thinking. So that's an example. So you have to be able to let your kids know, no, that's not acceptable. Yeah. And one of the things that I talk about in my books, a teenager, which are very difficult to deal with because they're trying to individuate. Teenager comes to the table with a phone. Not acceptable. But the way to do it so it's not a dictatorial thing, you can say, look, you can use your phone this time. Those are options. Taking it to the table is not an option. That's not acceptable, but you can use your phone whenever you want to, and you can have this and you can have that. So you give options, but options with limits.
Yep. Perfect.
Now, if they don't like it, tough. That's how it is. It's how it is. But if you're a buddy, then you can't be tough. You got, okay, then you can be a cat if you want, then you can purr through
You're
life.
Afraid of being liked.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's because they don't have very strong connection with themselves of who they are. Because they know who they are. They're a buddy and they're a friend and they're this and they're that. And what am I? I'm a mother. I'm a father. You don't like it, you'll get over it. But this is how it is. And kids need that grounding.
Yes.
That's why they go into gangs and they go into crazy things that they do, because they need somebody to accept them and give them the grounding. If I don't give you the grounding, maybe a gang can give you the grounding, because they'll say, we'll accept anything about you and this, you're part of us. But it's very difficult because everybody wants to be liked.
That's right.
And the more you're into the I self, the more you're going to allow kids to do things that you know are not right, but you want to be nice and you want to be cool. You want to be a modern mother, a modern father. I think that's junk.
I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Dr. Leonard Sachs. He's got a revision of his book, The Collapse of Parenting. I'll just refer to the audience if anybody wants more on this. I mean, Mario, he's all about this stuff. Like, I mean, he is, just in my opinion, he's like on your level with your field, of his field with parenting. And he goes all into this, how parents just have no confidence. They have no authority. They don't understand the difference between boundaries and discipline and love and attachment. I mean, it's just kind of a mess. I even have some of my close personal girlfriends that are teachers and principals of schools and, really prominent jobs. And they are just pulling their hair out at parents. Like this younger generation of parents, they're not parenting. Like you said, they're kind of buddying and they're allowing. And then this whole backlash of letting kids kind of like, my body, my choice. I don't want to make my 3-year-old do anything. It's like, he's
That's
3,
right.
like whatever. It's kind of nuts.
Schools are colluding with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, colluding.
There's a school in Minnesota.
Kids can't run the show. They're kids.
Kids through 6 weeks of training so they can determine their gender.
They're children.
Here's the important thing. This is what has been suicide. This is not a political thing. This is science. The prefrontal lobe, women are better. They develop it at 19, sometimes men up to 25. That part of the brain has to do with understanding at a deep level the consequences for your behavior in the future. If that's not well developed, you're not going to have a grounding of the consequences of your behavior. There's one girl who had a double mastectomy at 11 years old.
Wow.
That is malpractice, and that's poor. But to be fair with the parents, that's what the doctor, if that's what she wants. Well, what happened? The girl turned 17.
Yeah.
Double mastectomy. She worked because most people with the dysphorias, they work out on their own or they need but they come out. Okay. So he came out and said, now I want to be a mother. I can't feed my children. She committed suicide.
Oh, so
that's
sad.
The kind of thing that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. The dysphoria is there, but
backlash.
It's a very low percentage. And it needs to be treated as a dysphoria. And in many cases, they work themselves out. And the very, very, very small percentage will require some transitioning and things like that, but very small. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on in the world, not just with that. But what's going on in the world is if I want to be this, I'm that. I want to be a cat, I'm a cat. I want to be a car, I'm a car. There are people that are now saying that they're worms, and you see them in the subways in New York just crawling on the floor. I mean, I've seen videos of that.
Come on.
What the hell's going on here? This is crazy. This is delusional thinking, psychotic. So that's what needs to happen. People need to come back to reason, and they need to come back to giving their kids a sense of reality so they can ground themselves on something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, I'm almost speechless on that. I mean, and the research has just shown that what the backlash of any, these gender reassignment surgeries, which used to be called sex changes, I mean, it's something like 80% of them are now regretting it a year or two later or time after.
And even before this was popular, 20 years, 30 years ago, I was working with a major university who was actually doing the transsexual, they called it, from male to female. Okay. We had to see them for a year dressed as women, living with women in therapy to reduce the suicide rate to 10%. So this is way back. So I'm not just being some kind of a out of touch. I knew what it was even before it was popular. And that's what happens. It's very important. The body will fight it. And there's some people that want it, and that's okay. If you're an adult, you want to do it.
If you're an adult, yes.
But you have to know that the body will fight it, and you're going to have to be on hormone replacement for the rest of your life.
And you won't be able to have sexual pleasure. And
And those hormones can have a negative effect. We don't know. And if you want to do it, it's your body. That's fine. But only as an adult, not as a child.
That's right. Only as an adult. That is the key. I agree. Let's circle back as I kind of wipe the sweat off my brow because that is just, I feel like I'm in it, like beam me up. Am I just like in a dream I can't even believe the craziness. Okay, let's circle back to the 8 factors. So you said some are 4 perceptual, 4 emotional. The perceptual are time, aging, stress. And what was the other 4th?
It's a time, aging, health, and self-valuation.
Oh, sorry. So health and self-valuation. Okay, that's definitely the one I wanted to ask you. And then the 4 emotional are gratitude, curiosity.
Gratitude and, the way to look at them, you say gratitude and generosity are social bonding. Then admiration and curiosity are exploring the world.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's talk about self-valuation, because I know a lot of your work, which another reason why I love it is it talks about how we can increase our worthiness, because I know even in my work, that is a huge issue. That and, the environment, or as you say, the terrain of safety, very, very much a requirement. So the connection between worthiness and our expectation and what we get. I've also heard you say you don't believe in the law of attraction, probably for that reason. But can you talk to us about the connection between, well, first of all, let's have you define self-valuation, its relativeness here. And I'd love to hear you talk about that a little.
Yes. And that's good, because everything needs to be defined and operationalized. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just talking up in the clouds.
Yep.
Self-valuation is the significance that you give to you as an individual.
Yes.
And in biocognition, in my theory, it's broken down into 3 parts of self-esteem. The first one is valuation. How much do you value yourself without sabotaging yourself when things go well? That's one of the best ways.
Huge.
How much you value yourself when things are going well, you're not going to sabotage yourself.
Oh,
that's
huge.
Self-valuation. The other one is competence. How good are you what you do as a mother, as a friend, as a lover, as a carpenter? Competence. And the third, which nobody talks about, is affiliation self-esteem, which has to do with the quality of people that you celebrate your life with.
That's so big.
And that you accept those people in a way that also allows you to connect with your worthiness. So that's what it has to do. Now, if you feel worthy, you can give people permission to disagree with you. You can accept your worthiness without excuses. And all of those things are anti-stress. All of those are anti-stressful, because if you are an outlier, and in order to be a centenarian, you have to be an outlier. You have to be different. Otherwise, you're not going to... There are no centenarians that are addicts or obese. Some of them are Rubenesque, but none of them are obese. So you have to look at that. So then,
wow,
it has to do with, how do I value myself in relationship to what's going on in my life? Mm-hmm. And that also is related, as you know, from the archetypal wounds. We learn the intimate language of love that the culture editors, and I know you know this, but for your audience, the culture editors are people that have power in the culture to determine who you are. Doctors and clinics, clergy in churches, parents, teachers. Very powerful teachers, very powerful. And if those people wound you with archetypal wounds, with shame, abandonment, or betrayal, that needs to be worked out. Otherwise, self-worthiness is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
I have worked with Fortune 100 executives, highly successful, wealthy, and everything. And they have, let's say, for example, an archetypal wound of shame, and they either sabotage themselves, or when things are going well, they start getting sick. And they don't know why. Because that's saying you're not worthy of good fortune. You're not worthy of good things.
That's a way of self-sabotaging. They get sick, or people are accident prone, or,
That's right.
Things like that. Yeah.
And you see executives who are doing really well, and they do something stupid. They're found with a prostitute doing drugs. What's going on? Well, it's that. And they're not doing it consciously. Why? Because the intimate language of love gets entangled with the archetypal wounds of abandonment, shame, or betrayal. Some people will say, I've been married 3 times And every time I've been abandoned because you speak abandonment fluently and you look for people that abandon or that you can abandon. And those are the things that need to be cleaned up to clean up self-worthiness.
How do they do that? How do you do that? How do you clean up these archetypal wounds?
Well, because each of the archetypal wounds has an antidote. And we have in my book, The Mind-Body Code.
Yes.
But basically,
so good.
Each wound has a correlation with illness, not a cause, but a correlation with illness. Mm-hmm. Abandonment is the most primitive. If someone shames you when you're 6 months old, you don't even know you're being shamed. But if they abandon you, you die. So it's the most primitive, abandonment. And abandonment could be physical, emotional, intellectual. You're in your kindergarten and all the mommies or fathers picking up the kids, they're coming up and you see nobody there. If it happens one time, it's all right. If there's a pattern, you begin to learn that love must mean that I have to be abandoned, because if those people love me, then abandonment is a language and you take that with you. So then each of them has an antidote. The antidote for abandonment is commitment to self. The antidote for betrayal is loyalty to self.
Loyalty.
And the antidote for shaming, which is the most studied in psycho-immunology, has to do with honor to self. And now we're studying the anti-inflammatory component of honor, because we know that shame is inflammatory. And we're studying how honor consciousness can be anti-inflammatory. And you heal it with techniques that we use and how to go to the wound, and because you are the creator of your show, but you have cultural editors that made you believe that you're something that you're not. And you buy it because they're powerful. And even though intellectually you say, no, I'm not going to be like my father. My father abandoned me, but I'm not going to. Well, you're abandoning yourself, because it's not what your father said, it's what your father did that you watch. Observational learning comes before language.
That's huge. Watch what I do, not what I say, because that's what they do anyway. So the connection between self-care and the antidote to abandonment is self-commitment, you're saying. So I guess, can I translate that to mean not abandoning my self-care? When I say I'm going to exercise 3 times a week, take a bath, and take a walk after work twice a week, whatever, I don't come across with excuses and tell myself I'm too busy and put other people's needs before mine. I don't abandon my commitment to myself. That's how I can heal that archetypal wound of abandonment.
Yes, and it's, as you know, it's not intellectual, but that's it. You were taught abandonment.
Yeah.
You're not worthy of commitment.
Yep.
Well, your memory, all your archives and all your default mode and everything is based on the consciousness of abandonment. So the brain doesn't have any information that says you can commit. And for 2 reasons. One, you don't pay attention to the times you committed, because the register is only looking for abandonment. 2, you're not doing it consciously to increase the neural maps that you need. So for example, let's say your archetypal wound is abandonment. So, okay, I want to work with it. And I'm going to find out when you do the technique, which is bringing it out and experiencing it all. And I'm going to learn commitment. The antidote goes up when you keep the commitments, as you say. The antidote goes down when you break the commitments. And then for a week or 2, you can say, okay, I'm going to be conscious of the commitments that I make. Even if it's a commitment to have a glass of water, that's a commitment.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're teaching your brain to break from that consciousness of an abandonment to a consciousness that says the archetypal wounds that I have created by cultural editors can be modified. So if I make commitments for 2 weeks, this commitment here, the consciousness begins to change, and gradually your self-worthiness begins to change too, because that part has been worked out. Another one, the next one is when someone shames you. That's the most damaging, because shame is inflammatory.
Yeah.
If I say to somebody, you're so stupid in front of people, immediately you're going to have inflammatory molecules like tumor necrosis factor, C-reactive protein, interleukins, so all of that. Why? Because the brain takes language as a real thing. How can a word that has no physicality create physicality? Because we're a bioinformational field that language is part of our biology.
Wow.
So then honor, I'll give you an example because I think stories are the best way to teach something complex. This man was a highly successful CEO of a big company. And he started working because he had a major shaming wound. He had some autoimmune problems. And so we worked on it and he knew what to do. And then he walks into, and by the way, you'll know you have a wound if you overreact to something.
Right. A trigger.
Mm-hmm. A trigger. Somebody's late for 15 minutes, you get very angry. Well, that's an abandonment wound. Yeah. So he goes to the board of directors and there's a meeting with all the board and he's a CEO and the board of directors is very shaming. So he says to you, oh, there you are. I can always count on you on being late. And he turned on and he knew what to do. And he stopped. He took a deep breath and he said, is the honor consciousness that I create right now. And he stopped and he said, yes, you're right. I'll talk to you later about this. When you want to change that, you have to set limits. So the meeting was over and he went to the board of director and he said, here's the report that you needed. I was late and this is what I'm going to do for being late, but don't ever shame me in front of people again. I'm a professional like you. So, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. You have to be willing to take chances. Otherwise, it doesn't work. He said that he was turning red. When you turn red, you have an immunological reaction.
For sure.
He said that he cooled off the body because you're hot.
Yeah.
He felt so centered. And when he walked out of that room, he felt a tremendous sense of liberation. That's an example.
Powerful. Oh my God, there's so many examples pop in my head with that example you just gave. It's just amazing how we don't even register this is all happening, but our body sure does. We just have to be so much more conscious. Okay, so we have to learn joy. I've heard you say that. I can't let you go without telling us about that. You've said that 80% of babies are not born joyful. They're born happy. So what is this about? We have to learn joy. Can you please explain and how do we learn it?
Yeah, especially joy can be dangerous.
Oh, really? That's a good kind of danger to me.
Well, because it depends on your self-esteem.
Okay.
Worthiness. Okay, babies, I say babies are joyful. They're not joyful. They're happy when they're fed. They're unhappy when they're not fed. This is happening outside, inside. You're happy if you buy a new car. You're not happy if you get an accident. You're happy a good relationship is over. You're not. It's something that you can't control, only temporarily. Joy is an internal process that has to do with your own serenity, your own place in the world, your own value, your meaning, your sense of importance in what you do in your life, purpose, all the things that are really important. That's joy, and that's always there. Always there. In the worst time of your life, you can be in the middle of a storm and you can go to your serenity. Why is it dangerous? Because if your self-esteem or your self-valuation is very difficult to identify and it's very low, when things that are joyful happen, you always look for joy inside. It doesn't come from outside. Then you're going to sabotage it or you're going to get sick because I'm feeling so good right now. What's wrong with me? This is why toxic people, when you're having a good relationship, let's say a toxic family member, and you're feeling really good, but the toxic person says, wait a minute, I'm feeling too good. What do I do? And say, Amy, I gained some weight. That's a way of getting you disconnected from the joy. And at that moment, you say, oh, yes, I have. It's very astute of you. I got to go. I love you. Because otherwise you enter a dance of toxicity. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to realize that joy is always there and it's not happy. Joy is a serene process that you go inward. And I'll give you an example. Aristotle, 2,300 years ago. Aristotle said that hedonism is not enough. Joy for joy of itself is not enough. He said that we call eudaimonia, or daimonia in Greek, which means it's good. Daimon, spirit, good spirit. Said eudaimonia is better. Finding pleasure, finding joy in service, in purpose, and in meaning. Okay, that's really very nice. He's a philosopher. What does he know about immune system? Well, recent studies have been done and replicated looking at something called CTRA, which is a very specific reaction of immune cells. Conserve transcriptional response to adversity. And these are genes in immune cells that respond with antibodies, antivirus, and anti-inflammatory or inflammatory depending. They tested people psychologically. Okay, you're more hedonic, The extreme of a hedonic is someone who's a sex addict or sex is not an addiction with sex; it's a compulsion, or an addiction with drugs. Totally hedonic. And there are also levels of looking for pleasure without having to be a drug addict. And they divided those people into people who are eudaimonia, who find the pleasure in purpose, the pleasure in service. And they measure the CTRA. That's highly specific for the immune system. The people that were Aristotelian, eudaimonia, they had better response to adversity than people who are hedonic. And yet, the difference between the two and the level of happiness between the two was the same. The immune system could tell the difference and go in. So eudaimonia is a way to live, which means finding pleasure, finding joy in purpose, service. So Aristotle was right.
Aristotle was right again.
Again, that's right.
All right. I'm curious with your latest research. Have you found a difference with these centenarians and these successful super agers between the men and the women? Are there similarities? And are there differences? And if so, what are the differences?
That's a good question. The men are catching up. There are more female centenarians than male centenarians, but they're catching up. So we have about maybe 30 to 70%, 30 men to women. They have the same qualities.
Okay, same qualities.
Same qualities. All of the ones we tested, whether male or female, they're at least 20 years younger than their chronological age.
Their biological age is 20 years younger.
20 years younger.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Some of the underlying commonalities are, you mentioned they're not necessarily spiritual or religious, but they have a greater sense of life as some kind of connection, that they all have that.
Yes. There's some atheists, very few, but even the atheists believe in nature, believe in something other than themselves, so it's not the totally narcissistic existence.
Something bigger. Yeah.
But we're finding, and this is the great discoveries that we're making, they're high on the 8 factors, and it's reflected in their biological blood work, which shows that they're at least 20 years younger. So what we want to do is if you take the questionnaire, it'll tell you how close you are to Centenarian consciousness. And then what can you do? Because Centenarian consciousness can be learned at any age. It's not like you if you're old, it's too late. At any age. The
sooner you learn it, the better.
The better, of course, because you have more opportunity. But the man who's 69, who came out 44 years younger, 69. So his biology is 25.
Now, can anyone take the test? You have to be a certain age to take it.
At first, we only wanted adults, but now I'm glad you asked that question. It's a great question. You're brilliant, by the way.
Well, thank you. How'd I do? I received that. Thank you.
Good. There you oxytocin going.
See, I was going to say, so are you, but I'm not going to do the reciprocal thing.
That's right. Very good. Very good. So one of the questions we're trying to answer, which goes to your question, is, all right, is this learned? This centenarian consciousness?
Yeah.
Or is this genetic?
Yes.
So now we started testing children at age 7 to 10 to get that ring. The ones who come from healthy environments are like literally just like mini centenarians.
Wow.
The ones that don't have that. So it's a learned process. The propensity is there, but it can be lost on how you deal with the world. And what centenarians do is they have a way of doing resilience with thriving. Some have been raped, some have been in concentration camps. Resilience with thriving, not just resilience, with thriving. So yeah, the question is from 7 to 10, we're using just that group now, and then any age from 18 up.
So important. That's wonderful you're doing that. So like, could a normal person like me say, hey, I want to take that test to see my biological age?
Yeah, anybody can do it. Yeah.
And where do you do it? How do you get?
When I did it, I was 23 years younger, and you never tell your age. People ask me, so what's your age? Well, I'm 23 years younger than my chronological. And what's your chronological? 23 years older. That's it. The reason you don't tell your age is because you'll be pegged into how long you've been around rather than your accomplishments. And if you're going older and they say, oh, look, you're 70. Oh, yeah. Oh, you look so good. But still, then they put you into the place of the 70 and you begin to act like the 70. There's a lot of research that supports what I call aging by observation. Longemetrics is a company that we started to do this, and we're doing research as well as having the products. So at biocognitive.com, and you go to Longemetrics, and click that, and you can then take the CCI alone or the CCI with the glycanage, depending on what you want to do.
Thank you. I definitely want to do that. Well, this is a big part of the new online course and membership that I have coming out, because we talk about the 4 life process archetypes of the feminine, and the 4th one is the wise woman stage. And this is like really near and dear to my heart, because there's a big difference between being young and being youthful. And I know you and your work, and Dr. Christiane Northrup, your colleague, she's really big on that as well. Like, having a youthful mindset is really the key to youth and having that energy. So this is just so important. And on that note, before I let you go, and I have one last question after this, how about sex? So as these people are older and the centenarians, what's happening with their sex lives, Mario? I mean, are they still having sex at that age, or, how does that all play in?
Yes, there's a 102-year-old man, and he said, I've always loved young women. My partner is 80, and she's really hot.
That's awesome.
So yeah, It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way, because a lot of it is, there's some people that have some physiological issues that are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most of it is just the mindset that you create. Rats, for example, a rat, they copulate, and the male has to have a certain amount of time to recuperate and have sex again, unless a cute little mice female comes around and immediately they're ready to go again.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's curiosity.
That's
so yes,
awesome.
It doesn't have to be the end. What happens is that you learn, and then you're told. Let me give you an example. They're men in their 20s that are taking the Viagra type of medications.
Yeah.
Why? Because the attribution that you give to things. Let's say that one day you come home, you're 25, and you're tired, you're a little depressed, you haven't eaten well, and you can't perform. Immediately you go, oh my God, what do I do? So you take some kind of medication. Some people need it, but they take some kind of medication, it works, you're done. Because you become dependent on that. As opposed to the attribution would be, okay, I'm tired, maybe I'm upset with my partner, all other kinds of interpretation. You let it go, and then when you're into it again, you give it another try. It's mostly a psychological process. Although they're hyping problems and things like that, I'm not going to be. I'm a scientist. I'm not going to say it's. Some people have some serious problems, but most people, it's just what you buy from your age. Mm-hmm. If you're 70. Or if you're 30, you forget something at 30. Well, I forgot something. If you're 70, oh my God, could this be dementia? And what
a senior moment?
Yes, that's right. Never say senior moment.
That drives.
And what happens neuropsychologically? What happens? All right, let's say that you're 30 and you go and you forget. Fine, but now you're turning 60 and you forget that you went from the kitchen to the dining room and you don't remember anything, and you start getting anxious. You start getting tense. The hormones, the stress hormones that you secrete from that anxiety begin to affect the hippocampus, which is the part that the dementia affect, and you begin to develop dementia-like symptoms by screwing around with your brain.
It actually creates it. Oh my God. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once again, like so many things in life. Oh, that's so incredible. So what would you say is like maybe one of the main things you learned from this latest book, this wonderful book, the Phoenix Self, and what we're talking about, the 8 factors of centenarian longevity? What was like any surprises or like main takeaways for you as a scientist doing this over 25 years?
Yes, the Phoenix Self is a psychological novel, but you will learn more about longevity than any text that you can imagine. Because what I'm doing is I'm taking science, what we know from science, and extrapolating it and letting it go to literature, a little bit further from literature. But if you practice those 5 attainments that you have to find in the book, you are going to increase your probability of developing a longer and healthier life, because it has to do in a way with the 8 factors. It has to do with how you live your life. Then, of course, and I come up with some things in literature about these were secrets that were found in the secret library of the Vatican and all that. But it's taking it to the next level of what could science be, using good science, not just made up science. So what I found is that as I was writing it, I was finding I'm writing about centenarians, how these people are. And we know, at least as far as you can measure it, that the highest that they've been able to measure with some credible information is that a 122-year-old woman and 102 and 160 days, a French woman, Jean Marchand, and she passed away a few years ago. The oldest man has been 118. But we have marathon runners like Jovia Singh, who's 113, and he quit marathons at 105, but he's still running. He's 113 in India.
Still running.
What? Not in marathons anymore, but he gave it up at 105. So what it's saying is that we have horizons of longevity that need to be explored, not with what medicine tells you. Medicine is really very good, but medicine is very reductionist, and it'll go to actuarial tables and it'll go to averages. This is the average lifespan. That's not the way to look at it, because that's an average, and you're not an average, you're a person. So
right.
The greatest discovery is that I thought that, one, these things can be learned at any age, and although it's a novel, it can be a very powerful way for you to practice what Enrique in the novel practices, which is the 5 attainments. And there are a lot of surprises, and of course, as you know, good food and good wine and all the good life kind of thing.
Well, I love there's one sentence you've got in the book, and it talks about the 2 main characters and how love is vertical. I never heard that concept before. Love is vertical. Before I let you go, could you just share that with the audience? What do you mean by love is vertical, Mario?
Yes. And that is a biocognitive term. Horizontal love doesn't mean being in bed. Horizontal love means superficial, shallow, many relationships. Mm-hmm. These are the people that are so popular, but nobody really knows who they are. They're committed to not committing. That's the horizontal. It's shallow. The vertical love is you go deep inside, and your partner or the people that have meaning in your life become a universe to explore for the rest of your life. You go vertical, you go inward. Wow. And as you go inward, more discovery, more, and the sensuality continues. People in their 80s and 90s are very attracted to each other because they're going deep. And what does that do? That's curiosity. Verticality is curiosity, and allowing yourself to discover someone who is completely undiscoverable in the long run. That's one of the others, but that's one of the main that you want to go deep, and you burn your ships. You go deep with that person, and you don't stay in a relationship that's abusive. But in a relationship that's not abusive, that is worthy, then you commit and you go deeper and deeper. And what happens is you become closer, and you develop the Centenarian consciousness between the two of you. So you're living honor, commitment, loyalty, accepting your greatness. And it has to be a relationship of mutual admiration. Mutual admiration. That's such an important part of your work. Yep. And it doesn't have to be quid pro quo. I'll say, Amy, you're so beautiful. Thank you. And then the goodwill will be, maybe you want to do something for me or not, but it doesn't matter. You take down it the road. And the gift. That's it. Mm-hmm. But what it does is indirectly it creates goodwill. Then maybe you do something for me, and because I have goodwill, I'm not going to over-respond to you. I'm going to treat you with greater kindness, and because the goodwill would put it in perspective. As opposed you got deposits in the bank. Yeah. What have you done for me lately kind of thing. It doesn't matter. What have you done for me lately are the people that you've been together for 20 years, and you've been doing so much, but you make a mistake, and all of a sudden you haven't done anything. Yeah. What have you done for me lately? And you have to, when you have a problem in a relationship, you have to look at it in terms of what is the totality of the relationship to be put into the problem that's happening today. Not what's happening today determines the relationship, because nobody's perfect. And what if is the totality? Totality of the relationship. So as in something that, for example, shames you. You're at a party and maybe you gain a little weight, and your partner says, "Oh, look, she's gained some weight, and I don't know what to do about her." And you feel very, very embarrassed. And okay, you don't do anything there. You go home and say, first, always Socratic. How did you feel when you said that to me? I'm going to give you the worst scenario. Oh, I felt it's okay. I mean, you're overweight. You didn't feel anything negative? No? Okay. Well, I did. I felt very embarrassed. I felt very ashamed. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is I want you to begin to look at how you're treating me in public. And rather than take it to the audience, tell me directly what you want from me, and I'll start working on it with you. Mm-hmm. So rather than shaming you back, I'm going to honor our relationship And I'm going to see you become an honorable person.
Wow. That's the high road.
Rather than speaking shame. And the usual thing is that subconsciously, you know that person has an abandonment issue, and you forget to cook dinner that night, or you forget to do something that night. You get passive aggressive without knowing it.
Passive aggressive.
It's a way of abandoning.
Oh my God, so true. Just tell me, why did you have in that scenario, the woman first asked the question, how did you feel when you said I had gained weight? Like, why are you having her ask that question before she says, geez, that really hurt my feelings, honey?
Because you wanted to introspect. Otherwise, if you don't say that, say, well, I didn't mean anything. No, yeah. How would you feel to get them to introspect on what they did, to own what they did? It says to you, you're so stupid. Oh, really? Tell me, how am I stupid and under what conditions? You got to get them to own the toxicity.
Yes. That's so good. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Well, I can obviously keep you here for hours like I could the last show. And I just want to reiterate to everyone, if you want more on the Centenarian research, we get really deep in that on episode 80, where Dr. Martinez does get more into the antidotes, which we referred to, and the 3 archetypal wounds, and just much more of the qualities and the attributes of these Centenarian superagers. So that's episode 80. Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to mention before we remember it is that if your audience has anyone who's 100 who wants to be part of the pilot, we have close to $500 worth of testing free for the research. So if you have a centenarian, we do all the free work for them, both the CCI, the Glycanage, the report, everything, and they'll be making a major contribution to longevity science.
That's great. Okay, everybody. You know anybody 100 or over? We're going to send them your way. Mario, what's your favorite country to visit to so far? Your research all over the world.
Well, there's several places. The Bordighera and all the centenarians that we found. I like that there.
Italy?
Pardon?
That's Italy?
In Italy, Bordighera.
Italy,
it's between Cannes and Monaco. It's just beautiful. And I can see why they're centenarians. I thought it was in really good shape, and it's up and downhill.
Oh, okay.
Out of breath, and I had to. And then second, I went to Mexico City, and there are several clinics that are beginning. They're very open to new things, and there's several clinics that we're going to be working with. So Mexico City is becoming another one of cities that I really enjoy.
Excellent.
Like Ireland, Dublin, a few places that.
Really? Okay. Well, those are all very different. Wow.
Yeah.
For different reasons. And you're you're in the U.S., you're in Tennessee?
Yes, I'm in Nashville, in Tennessee.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, final thoughts. This has just been, again, another one of my absolute favorite, one of the most important episodes ever. I just love this stuff so much. But any final thoughts today you want to share with the audience before we tell them how to find you?
Yes, the most important thing is to be aware of the power that the culture has. The culture has a collective beliefs about things that are important, like aesthetics, ethics, health, aging. Be aware of that, because that will kill you faster than your genes, but it'll kill you faster than your genes by using the culture and understanding where you come from, and then becoming an outlier, coming out of the fishbowl and knowing that the fishbowl is not life. It's what the culture told you, the portal that the culture told you. So don't underestimate the power of the culture.
And don't be afraid to be an outlier.
And and get people permission to not like it.
Yes, I love it. And wow, just so great. 8 factors of centenarian longevity and the inherited causes of health. The inherited causes of health. We can inherit health. What a great concept. Well, you are just a positive pioneer on the planet. And again, super, super grateful to have you. How can people find your work, Dr. Martinez?
The easiest would be biocognitive.com. And also they can go to my YouTube. I have over 400 videos free, of course.
Yes, so good.
With all kinds of information. Dr. Mario Martinez, the YouTube channel.
And you have to put doctor, because there are other Marios.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's a Mario Martinez who's a drug dealer, so you don't want to go there.
You are too, but in a good way, and a different kind of drugs. Yeah, you're doing psychological drugs, which are much more potent and important and safe. So, okay, everybody, that's all in the show notes. And please check out the books as well. I've got all your audio books. Oftentimes you take walks with me. I love them. I'm so grateful, too, that it's you reading the audio books because I don't know. I just find that that's very, I just think that's more. And maybe one day when I write my own book, and I know like what goes into reading your own book, but I just like it when the author is reading the audiobook. I don't like when they have other people reading it. But I feel like it's very effective and I love it and a great way to learn. So I really do hope everybody checks you out. And if you know anybody over 100, send them Dr. Martinez way. Take his longevity test, see what your biological age is. And don't forget, you are in more control of your health. Pay attention to your environment, your culture, your thoughts, the psychology, and that self-worthiness is so important. Thank you so much, Mario. I really appreciate you coming on Awakening Aphrodite.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure, and congratulations on your work.
Thank you so much. Well, I have you to thank for a lot of it because you've really helped me with the mindset and the power of possibility and all that. So it's people like you that have been a big part of everything that I've created and am creating. So I'm super grateful. And I am referring to you many times in my course, which I referenced, because that whole section on the wise woman, there's a lot of your work in there too. So, and maybe you can come on and speak to my membership group one day and at one of the webinars.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thanks for hanging in to the end of the show. I know you loved it as much as I did. And we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite. Bye-bye.